Everyone, I'm Dr. Anurag and welcome to my channel. So today in this video, I have an international medical graduate who matched into radiology in the United States. How amazing is that, right? Well, she graduated from Nepalese Army Institute of Health Sciences in 2018 and now has matched into Mercy Catholic Medical Center, a perfectionist who, apart from her stellar scores and academics, is an all-round achiever. From medicine to scientific writing to literature to music and so much more, let's welcome the oh so beautiful and oh so talented Dr. Rajshree Singh. Welcome, Dr. Rajshree.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that introduction, Anurag. That was quite an elaborate introduction. I remember you giving me a chance to introduce myself, and I said like, oh well, I would just say that, hi guys, I'm Rashi or something like that. I wasn't quite expecting that introduction, so thank you so much. That means a lot. So I'm so happy to be here at your channel.
Yes, it's great to have you here as well because, one of the road specialties, right? I mean, amazing. So, especially, there's this concept of people thinking that, visa requiring international medical graduates cannot get into competitive specialties like the road specialties, right? And you've proven them wrong and you've done this. So, I mean, how does it feel, So, what were your what were the things that were going on in your mind when you got that, the email, this thing that you matched, and ultimately you saw that you matched into your dream specialty? I mean, what goes into your mind when something like that happens?
It's a surreal feeling. I can't describe it in words. Hands down, that has to be one of the best moments ever in my life. And yeah, I'm still kind of overcoming the imposter syndrome that I'm experiencing. It's a surreal feeling. And now with the tedious onboarding process that I've been working on with mountains of paperwork, I think I'm finally letting this feeling kind of sink in. I really want to share you the NRMP 2021 stats of the match 2021. They just published it a couple of weeks back, and apparently more than 1,200 applicants applied for diagnostic radiology this year for 120 plus spots. And I'm glad to find out that I'm one of those 8 non-US IMGs to have matched into diagnostic radiology. So it's an amazing feeling. And I'm really happy to be able to, represent a distinct group of non-US IMGs who dare to dream and to be able to think that I am a part of something big, a bigger movement. And I think it's about time the IMGs hit the road as well.
That's great. You sure are a role model to everyone who's aspiring to get into these competitive specialties, and especially from Nepal. There has been a recent trend of medical graduates getting into, competitive specialties, and I hope this trend continues. So, Dr. Rajshri, what would you say about your journey? I mean, a little bit into your med school and, the whole process of what happened, while you were preparing for the USMLE and, things like that, how everything progressed. So a little bit into that.
Uh, I would try to just shorten this up because I mean it's difficult to compress a decade of my medical experience, education, and knowledge in a couple of sentences. But before my med school, I used to work as an event manager and a music journalist for a music company. And I thought my plan B would be to be a musician. So I was working with a lot of music festivals, but eventually, I mean, growing up with dad as my role model, and he's a military pathologist, and he sort of kind of led me into way of falling in love with medicine. I used to work as his scribe when I was a little kid, and I used to write his pathology reports, just muster up my best handwriting, my cursive handwritings, and write it down, and had no idea what it was all about. So eventually, I ended up choosing medicine just like him. So I enrolled into my med school as a first batch graduate, and there was a lot of challenges coming into a med school where you're the first batch graduate, but it kind of helped me nurture a lot of skills. Like I was able to build up my leadership skills, sort of represent my batch in giving feedbacks, constructive criticisms to the administration, and sort of work this out together and sort of build up new policies and ideas. So it was a quite an interesting experience for me, and I'm glad to be able to be, graduate as a first class student. It gave me a lot of opportunities to sort of find really great mentors in my faculties, because since we didn't had any seniors, we were sort of looking up to our attendings, and they were very helpful. And I got to have a really great clinical exposure as well, and sort of became really confident in my practice. So my med school journey was quite fun and quite productive. So that's something I cherish forever. I did plan to pursue USMLE quite early, but since we had such rigorous internship of almost 120 hours a week, there was no chance that I could pull off a USMLE step preparation at that point. So at that point, I was just collecting materials, strategizing how I would plan my step journey, and because I had such an amazing clinical exposure, I also got a chance to work with a lot of research and publications. So that was quite fun. So I started my effective prep after my graduation while I was working through other two jobs as a part-time. And I gave my step one in, I think, March 2019, and my CK in November 2019. And I'm probably one of those last batch of CS candidates. So I gave my CS in February 2020, and my step three in October 2020. And lucky enough, I submitted my step three score 3 hours before the match application deadline. So that was quite a close call. So yeah, I think that that's the quite a, I think, a small summary of my graduation, my med school, and my step journey.
That's great. So, even while you were working on the side and everything was there, right? So you managed to score step one to 62 to 65 on a step two, and step two CS, bam, done. And step three to 49. I mean, all these scores are like it's like giving me brain damage. So, I mean, you've got these stellar scores and everything is there. So, in your opinion, what do you think was the most difficult step, exam wise, preparation wise, and the whole mentality of a student going into these exams? So which one do you think was the most tough, or the most challenging one for you?
It's no brainer, hands down. It has to be step one, because as you quietly know that we have a very distinctly, drastically separate curriculum structure, and this was my first time getting introduced to medical ethics and molecular biology, genetics in so much of depth. And I come from a country where my first instinct would be tuberculosis and typhoid, and shifting gears and going towards sarcoidosis and lupus, it was quite a U-turn for me. So, and I come from a university where a lot of my exams are very subjective question based. So this was my first time working with multiple choice questions and problem-based questions. So I had to learn a new set of skills. And so because I gave almost 10 months for my uh, step one, I think it really helped me with my CK and step three. I was getting so many questions during my step three, which were very much step one based questions. And because I did an effective prep during my step one, I was able to nail them. So that was quite handy in the long run as well.
Step one, right? I mean, yes, you got this so much of anxiety. It's an 8-hour exam. Will I be able to even stay in those 8 hours or not? It's really a really stressful situation, but hopefully, everyone gets through with it. And just like you, I mean, you've got a great score set, so that's amazing. Okay, so then moving on to other things, these step scores and everything is there, right? So apart from that, I've heard you especially talk about CVs, right? right? Whenever you're talking to us, you're giving us advice, you always talk about having a good CV and an all-round CV with, a little bit of an extra focus into your specialty. So, uh, would you like to give some tips, or what's your opinion about what a good CV would be, and how important do you think is to develop or build a CV?
I can't stress enough about the importance of CV. And like you said, whoever really comes to me for any sort of advice, I just tell them to prepare your CV as much as you would put effort and hard work into preparing your steps. It's so much more important because your scores are only as good as taking you to a point where you don't get filtered out from an application. But if someone downloads your CV and reads it and tries to correlate that with who you are in the interview, I think that that is the deal maker and the deal breaker. So CV is the thing. And I started working on my CV very early in the sense that I was listing out things that I was doing. So that in the long run, I would know like which experiences I would want to put out there in my application, which I want. So if you're very clueless as to what makes a stellar CV, what you can do is you can go ahead and download ERAS CV and see what are the things that you can list over there. And that will sort of kind of give you an idea of what kind of candidate they are looking for. So in your ERAS CV, there is space to talk about volunteering activities, about research, about your work experiences, and about the organizations you're a part of and your hobbies. So those are the things that you would want to sort of brush up. And when I was in med school, I honestly had no idea. And this is me talking about all the mistakes that I did and retrospectively sort of telling you all to not go through that way. So I was someone who used to say yes to every opportunity because I was first batch. I really had no sense of direction. So I used to attend a lot of conferences, and those conferences kind of helped me sit down and understand about scientific research when I was listening to all these delegates talking about their subject specialty, and that kind of helped me understand about the impact of research and how to present your research, and it was very helpful. And with that confidence, I was able to manage my own couple of papers. and and since we had an earthquake, and I come from a developing country, so there is always a need of a humanitarian health aid. And coming from a rural community and coming over here and doing my med school, I always had a soft spot for humanitarian health aid. So I was doing that unknowingly, but apparently those are the things, my life experiences, that came very handy to me when I was actually making my own CV. So that is about your CV in general. Now, I also talk a lot about specialty focused CV, and I would like to touch upon it a little bit. So definitely, your only means of showing your true passion for the subject would be through your specialty focused CV, because that would say that this is not someone who's just taking any chance and just applying blindly, but this is someone who's done her homework and sort of is here for the long run. So having a specialty focused CV is very important, and it's no brainer as to what makes a specialty focused CV. It is definitely your clinical experiences and your volunteering experiences, your publications, and the more earlier you start into your med school for your specialty focused CV, the better it looks on an application. So I can't stress enough about the importance of CV, and I really urge everybody to at least start working on your CV 3 to 4 months prior, and try to keep your CV short and to the point, and try to put up only the bigger achievements of your life into your CV. Because if you're thinking that a 17-page CV is better than a 13-page CV, it's not that way, because then all the important things that you do would be lost in a text. And if someone's just skimming through your CV, they would just read it superficially. They won't go into depths of things. So learn to highlight the things that you think are important. And in my opinion, regarding a CV, what's important is to be able to showcase your communication skills, your interpersonal skills, your leadership, and your team player abilities. and show inquisitiveness and liking for your specialty, and someone who wants to contribute effectively into an organization, bring new initiatives and ideas, someone who enjoys medical education, like through teaching, and someone who's ready to adapt into a new sort of environment and have problem solving skills. So those are the aspects of your personality traits that you want to highlight through your CV.
That's great. So, apart from academics, right? I mean, I see that whenever I look at your profile and whenever you post things, okay, so I've seen you do a lot of things. I've seen you host events. I've seen you, go to rural areas for menstrual hygiene awareness camps. And recently, I even saw a video of you playing "Stairway to Heaven" on the ukulele. All right, so I mean, okay, for that, so apart from your academics and everything for every candidate, okay, so how important do you think are these other attributes which we call maybe soft skills, or like you play the bass as well, right, and you have got a lot of other interests on the side as well. So how do you think all of these attributes, I mean, do you think these attributes also culminate into a great CV, and it'll give the program directors things to talk about, or they're just soft skills, they're supposed to be in the corner, or they need to be brought out as much as possible? What do you think?
Uh, it's very important. It makes you who you are. It makes you stand out. And at the end of the day, you want to be a memorable candidate in a good way, of course, that they remember and be relatable. So I'm someone who's always out there trying out new things, stepping out of comfort zone, and that is also part of the reason why I wanted to do USMLE. So it's just my innate nature that I like to try new things out, and over the time, it has helped me build up good relationships and be able to talk with new people and get things that are common in between us and start of get going and speaking. So it has helped me in the long way too. And I think having these attributes doesn't always have to be non-medical. For me, it was very much non-medical because I used to find a big happiness in sort of cooking for my family. So initially, I was into music, and then I shifted gears. I was into pretty outfits and designing and fashion and everything, and that gave me happiness too. But recently, something I've realized is I love cooking for my friends and family, and I think it brings so much joy and it helps me spread happiness. So that's something I cherish. So these kind of life experiences, it helps you define who you are in person. In an interview, they are trying to look, they are not just trying to find out what are your hobbies. They want to know what got you into those hobbies, and you should be able to explain what motivated you to pick up that hobby. And they're always looking for these backstories. So make sure that you have these genuine life experiences, and it really shines through your personality when you talk about these things. You can be talking about I don't know, picking up drum, but talk about very superficially about it. And I think with someone who's an interviewer who's been interviewing for decades, they'd be able to pick up someone who's faking it and someone who's actually living it. So I'm someone who believes in real life experiences, and it makes you shape your personality, define who you are, and sort of give a three-dimensional depth into your personality. And this really helps you also kind of be someone that everybody else can relate with. And like I said, it doesn't always have to be a non-medical thing that you should be doing in order to stand out, because even in our medicine, there are so many aspects that we can explore. Like you can get into teaching, you can get into, you know, organizing conferences and journal clubs and research and training and doing these workshops and doing humanitarian health aid. And that things also give you a three-dimensional aspect into who you are, because you're someone who is more than just textbook medicine, more than just exams, and you want to do something extra and you're really passionate about what you're doing. So that really helps. And it also kind of helps a program director understand that this person has some sort of coping mechanisms. This is a human as well. And and it doesn't have to be very dramatic, really. it just has to show you as a person who is optimistic, passionate, hardworking, problem solver, and motivated. So you'd want to deliver that kind of vibe when you're talking about your hobbies and everything that you do as a side hustle.
Thank you. I am taking notes, by the way, if you don't mind.
Absolutely, please go ahead.
It's
Well,
almost
I
as
know
if,
you have the recording, but
yeah, I do.
still, I'm a note taker too. So I would record, I would take pictures of the PowerPoint, but I was someone who was an extensive note taker throughout my med school life.
Yes, I am taking notes. And, I think we had this conversation before, right? But it's almost as if that you're trying to give more information to my audience more than me. So I'm kind of trying to add a few more notes to whatever you had talked to me about in the previous sessions that we have. Okay, so I believe the viewers will be really, helped. They've received a lot of help from this video so far. So, okay, moving on to other things. What about US clinical experience and letters of recommendation? So, can you briefly tell us about what your clinical experience was and how it impacted you as a candidate, as the program directors viewing you and things. It might be a compound question, but it's mostly related to United States clinical experience and the letters of
Right.
recommendation. So something about that, Dr. Rajshree, if you will.
Right. So as you have quite much figured out by now that I'm a perfectionist and I had decent scores in my step, and I sort of wanted to complement it with a really rad CV and sort of, like get all the top-notch US clinical experiences, try to get stellar LORs, and sort of complement it to the kind of scores I had. And initially, I had a couple of seniors who told me that, yeah, you can still make it from March 2020, just go ahead. When I finished my step one in 2019, but I was pretty scared and I was pretty intimidated at that point, thinking that I could pull off a CK and a CS in less than 6 months. So I was someone who just passed out on that opportunity and said, well, I'm going to take my time during my CK and I'm gonna give my best. And I took my CK in November. By then it was too late, and then my CS in Feb. So I was really looking forward in 2020 to gain maximum amount of US clinical rotations. But COVID happened and it sort of ruined all my plans. I had three or four of my US clinical experiences opportunities canceled because of hospital policies having visitor restrictions. But still, despite all that, I had quite an improv in my journey. And for a perfectionist like me, making such last minute improvisation was something I was stepping out of my comfort zone as well. So I did manage a few rotations. I did one of my rotations prior to my CS because I had no idea how it was to interact with American patients, and that sort of helped me through. And I did a lot of interventional medicine related US clinical experiences because I wasn't able to get a radiology experience prior to my application. I was able to get one while I was doing my interview, so I got lucky with that. So I had a lot of improvisations. I did a tele rotation as well. Um, and let me bust you the myth. Not all of my LORs were clinical experience based LORs. From my paid and unpaid. Some of them were from my paid and unpaid volunteering clinical experiences as well. So yeah, I think I busted a lot of myths over there with doing tele rotations as well, because I think people are always debating whether it's going to be beneficial or not. But I think that's the new normal, right? So in summary, I had to do an improvisation, and at that point, I was working a lot on research and a lot of home country experiences when I was here in lockdown, doing a lot of things virtually, setting up my own website called USMLE Pearls. So yeah, it wasn't quite like what I had expected my 2020 to turn out to, but now that I match, I think it was amazing.
That's great. How do you manage to do all of these things on the side is beyond me. But somehow you pull it off and you make it seem easy. If someone comes and asks you and you seem like a really chill, laid back person, but there's this storm that's going on inside, and you've managed to handle it so well. So that's really nice to hear that. I wish I was that productive, but yeah. All right. So moving on to the other question that I have. So uh, while applying for radiology, right? So there's some, as IMGs, you always tell me and the other people that you help out, right? So you always tell us that you have to be practical as well, right? I mean, you have to be practical, and the same thing that had and happened to you while you were applying, right? So had you applied to some other specialties as well, or so I mean, we're trying to get into that territory. So
Yeah, that's quite an uncharted territory, and I think it's the elephant in the room, Anurag, that we're talking about.
exactly, yeah, that's why I was a bit, I
That's a big
mean,
confession. Yes, and I'm not ashamed of it, really. And I'm an IMG, and I have to match this year. Next year, I don't know if I'm certain I'm gonna get an opportunity to build up my CV, be able to go to United States. So it was like one shot for me as well. And honestly, I had to make it happen. And I took chances. I took calculated risk. I did apply to internal medicine by the side, but the thing is, I applied to a lot of programs out of anxiety, a little late in the application because I wasn't getting a lot of invites initially. So, so yeah, a lot of things came into play, but I did apply to specialty, and I'm not ashamed of it. Trying to share it, and I want to really give out genuine practical advices today here. And when I was applying, I was making sure that I was being honest and ethical about it, and I made sure I tell that to my program directors and thought they have the right to know. And honesty has always been a very important part of my virtue. So, yes, I did.
okay, so we got that out of the way. I was kind of hoping not to get into that uncharted territory because you have to. I mean, some things need to be shared, some things might not need to be shared, and you have to be very selective about all these things. But thank you for that, and thank you for your honesty. And like you mentioned, honesty always works, right? Okay, that's great. So, what about the interview process? I mean, how challenging it was for you? But I think it was not that challenging for you because you're so outspoken and everything. But interviews are interviews. You have to be serious when you have to be. So, how was this interview process like, the virtual ones? I mean, I'll ask you a few questions about the interview again, but just in short about virtual interviews and experience with interviews, and some few tips if you want to.
Yes, absolutely. I'd love to share our tips because I think this year we are expecting to have a hybrid interview or a virtual interview for most part of it. So, things that I learned from my last season of Match 2021, I would definitely want to share with you guys. But before that, talking in general about the interview process, uh, like I said, I mean, your application and your scores and only as good as getting you an interview invite. But once you get an interview invite, it is a common ground for everybody in that field. You have equal chance as your next person in the next Zoom window. Uh, so for me, I was very much intimidated by the applicants. They had stellar life experiences, stellar CV, and they look sharp and smart, and they were very well spoken. So I was quite intimidated, but I kept my calm. A couple of initial interviews, they were, I think I bombed some of them, but I think overall I did okay. I was just trying to be myself. And I did a lot of experiences. The part of the reason why I wanted to do my step 3 before my interview season was to get it out of the way and sort of keep a clear mind for my interview season and practice it. So I practiced with a lot of my friends who matched, and that helped me. I downloaded all the questions that could be possibly asked, but I got a lot of questions out of those lists as well, sort of did an improv that but helped. So I prepared a lot. And talking about virtual experiences, I think that is the only kind of experience that I got. I have no idea what an in-person interview looks like, but I bet it is a lively experience with pre-interview dinners and meet greet sessions and touring the hospitals. And those are the things I think I missed out while being in virtual. Although the virtual was a very economic option for an IMG like me, And well, last year I thought having virtual interviews would be a disadvantage, but I think the IMGs overall did pretty okay. Not as much as we had thought it would impact us, but definitely it did have a lot of impact. And I think a lot of impact came from the fact that we weren't able to travel to the US. And it was very difficult to sort of tell who you are through a virtual interview, because someone cannot now assess you wholesomely and learn about your body languages and who you are. And I think my program would be quite amazed to think that, okay, like she's pretty short for someone who came out in the window. So yeah, I mean, like no one can assess you physically in that way and tell who you are. So that's quite a bummer. But I did invest in a high-speed internet, a good laptop, a good external camera. Never trust your laptop camera, and a good set of Bluetooth earphones. And definitely the background was better than this. It wasn't like crammed up like this. Guys, this is not a good background. Anurag has a really good background, but try to keep it very clear. And you can keep one or two pictures in the background, sort of the ones that you would want to share a story about. It's a nice way to start a conversation, but don't keep it too crowded. And yeah, and I heard some interesting stories on the interviews about someone, who was not wearing pants and stuff. So don't do that. I mean, eventually, accidentally, it's going to show up, and you have like one shot at proving who you are during the interview. So don't take it lightly. So that would be my advice.
Thank you so much. Well, I believe, everything, I mean, it changes right after the interview starts. And before the interview, I mean, you're probably like, yeah, I can do this. But, when it actually begins, I think it's that moment when it becomes really nerve wracking. And I believe it's a really, I mean, it must be an amazing experience, just talking to new people, because you're out there sharing your experiences with some new people whom you don't know, and you have got 30 minutes to tell about who you are, and you've got a lot of things on your mind and everything is going on. So it must be a really amazing experience giving interviews, right? I mean, let alone matching.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Because I think giving interviews is so much easier than actually starting for steps. So I had a baseline comparison of, well, it is still better than starting for steps, right? I mean, I'm giving you interviews and meeting new people, and I was someone sort of always enjoyed meeting new people. So I had a fun session during my interview season, and especially because I got the step three out of the way as well. So it was all about just sitting and talking to people. Fun times.
So you would say that for virtual interviews, a good, I mean, a high-speed internet connection, a good webcam or a good camera, a good set of wireless, I mean, earbuds if it's possible. I think that's a really good touch. I mean, I had not thought of that. I'm using this wired earphone and whatnot, and I just realized when you told me that you've been using these, I mean, wireless earbuds. They give you this, I mean, clear audio quality, and you can hide it behind your hair, right? I mean, that's a really nice touch. All right, I have
Yeah,
not thought
Anurag,
of
but
that.
I don't expect you to like grow your hair. Don't do that. But
All right. Yeah, I think
yeah,
that'd be
but yeah, that kind
counterintuitive.
of
I mean,
helps you because the wire sort of keeps it all distracted. I've seen people like having big headphones, so that doesn't work as well. So I did some improvisations with the lightings as well. Sort of kept a table lamp behind my camera and sort of did a test audio and video check, and that always helps. Just do that before every interview session.
yeah, I think everyone needs to do that. So I'm actually guilty of using, virtual backgrounds, and I mean, heard from a lot of my seniors that, I see that you are a big fan of virtual backgrounds, but during residency interviews, like tone it down a little bit, or at least make sure that some things are in the background which you can talk about, like you mentioned, right? So I too am guilty of that, and I will make sure that, if I do get interviews, I will make sure that I will keep a good background. So that's there. Okay. So regarding interviews, two questions. Okay, quick questions. What do you think would be was the toughest question that you faced? I mean, you
Oh,
can't, I mean, give the
oh,
details, obviously, but, a little bit, what was the kind of the tough thing that you needed to answer? And what was the most interesting question that you might have received?
okay. Tough question. I think I'm gonna say two tough questions. There's this one program that asked me, how can my program cater to your needs? Like, what can this program give it to you? And that was a reverse question. And I was sort of taken aback because this is a program asking my demands, and I come from Nepal, so that's my baseline. I don't know what to like get from American standard of program because I think it has everything that ever need. And it was sort of a difficult question in the sense that I was making a demand, and from culturally from where I come, I don't make a lot of demand. I sort of just grab the opportunity whatever I get. So to be able to show that I'm nitpicky was something that was quite challenging for me. And another difficult question I think would be, what will you do if you don't match this year? And I was sort of taken aback by this question because I'm an optimistic person, and I knew I had to make this work in 2021, and this is it, and this is my year. But to be able to just take a pause from an interview and sort of think, okay, what will I do if I don't match this year? And to be able to come up with an answer, it was like sort of accepting the harsh reality of having to think of plan B. So that was quite a emotional moment for me as well. And I did manage to come up with a muster up with an answer, to be honest. But I told him that it's no brainer if why I wouldn't match this year. And I know because there are certain things that are lacking in my CV that would have uh, explained much more in detail about my passion that I have for this subject and how much I want to make this work. And definitely, I'm going to apply next year and definitely come back with a better CV as a stronger candidate. So that was just me speaking my heart out, and yeah, it was quite an emotional moment for me. So if I have to talk about an interesting question, so, like I said, I told you that I'm a first batch graduate. So, one of the programs asked me as, you join into a med school as a first batch graduate, knowing that this program doesn't have a history, and it's a clean slate. Why do you choose to join this med school, and what was the need of opening this med school? I would like to share my answer in the sense that a lot of people who could be our viewers could be in a similar situation as well, who are part of med school. So, like I mentioned, my father is a military pathologist, and I graduated from an army med school, so he was a part of the faculty. So I had been familiar with the inception of Army Medical School quite before when I was also in high school. They were working on it. So in Nepal, Anurag, even you know that we had a civil war, and it was quite one of those distressing times in our Nepali history. So during the civil war, we had a lot of casualties in army as well, and we know that residents and medical students and interns and fellows, they all are very important workforce of any healthcare organizations. And prior to this, in my medical school, prior to inception of my medical school, the Army hospital used to send all their doctors to study abroad and in other institutions. So at that point, they were being very understaffed. So to be able to generate your own healthcare workforce from the beginning was something that Nepal Army was kind of planning to aim ever after the Civil War. So that's how my medical school came into inception. And I shared this story, and he was really happy that I was able to shed some light. So yeah, those are some questions that you can never prepare for. And another interesting question is a question that I was asked was, if you were to be a color, which one would you be and why? So that was quite an abstract question. So I was like, excuse me? I was like, yeah, if you were to be a color, which one would it be and why? So he was more interested towards the why. Um, and I had no idea. I just blurted out green. But I gave my reasons as well, and sort of did an improv on those reasons. So I said like whenever I see green, I relate with greenery and nature, and I'm someone who's very close to nature. I like going on hikes and treks and sort of enjoy watching the greenery. So and someone who's very interested in interior designing, I think I remember blue and green hues being associated with soothing effects to it. So whenever someone looks at me and I'm the green color, I want them to feel, very calm and sort of give them a soothing feeling. So I don't know how much that made sense, but I tried my best. So yeah, those were some interesting questions I had.
Thank you. I think those were some interesting answers as well, and I believe that from the, I mean, doctors that I've interviewed and the Google searches that I've made, I've kind of, come to know that there are some straightforward questions which you can prepare for, but as much as there are straightforward questions, there are curveballs, right? So which can take you off guard, and
Absolutely.
I believe that is when the program directors actually, like see that, okay, so how will this person handle this? Okay, let's see what this person does.
Exactly,
And I think
Anurag.
that is what goes into there. I mean, I don't know, I mean, yeah, that
Yeah,
is there. So
Anurag, like you tell me, which color would you choose? And I would also want the viewers to drop down what color they would choose and why. I would love to answer.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, when you were talking about that color, I was like, okay, so what's my favorite color? Because I was sure that
Yeah.
you're probably going to do something, mix something up, and you're going to ask me. So, well, I
Yep.
would say blue, I guess, because what I feel, I associate blue with, I mean, vastness of, whenever you look at the sky, it's really vast. It's got a lot of things going on. It covers everything. It's like watching over you from somewhere. So, I associate blue with that. Whereas blue is also associated with the ocean. So similar to the sky, it's also very deep, and it's very, very, I mean, it can be calm at sometimes, but it can, just start ravaging and create tsunamis, and everything can also happen in that same space. So the wide range of things that, this blue color of the sky and the ocean, I mean, is related with. So I think that's a bit, it's a bit of an improvised answer for me, but just if I were to think about it directly, if you see my shirt is blue, I usually wear
I
blue
was gonna
things a
say
lot.
that.
So yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
I was
yeah,
gonna
yeah.
say that.
Yes, I think blue is
Yeah, I
uh,
mean, that's
an
a
amazing color.
really
Yeah.
good answer. Yeah,
Thank you.
blue for you signifies infinity and depth, and you know how a blue ocean, it can be molded into any vessel and kind of take a shape of whatever it can. It shows that adaptability to the sense of relating blue with ocean as well, or water itself as well. So I think that was a really good answer, and I would definitely want to hear out from the viewers. Which color they associate with and why.
Yes, that'd be really, really nice. And yeah, I mean, so this is what I really appreciate about you, Dr. Rajshree, is that, for a moment I felt that you were the one who was interviewing me and I was the interviewee, right? So this is how you take things in control, and then you just make do of whatever is given to you in the current situation, and then you just do it. So that's really a great quality that you have. All right. So
Thank you. But I was
not
just
not
having fun on my defense.
all right, so not to give you my job here, okay, and just take it back from you. So you always talk about the power of emails and always being open to opportunities, right? So you've always emphasized these things. Even during this interview, you said that you're someone who's always open to saying yes to a lot of opportunities, right? So power of emails and staying open to opportunities. Your perspective.
Oh, emails. Yes, they're important, but not just emails. Communication skills and
I was not expecting
your
that.
yeah.
All right. So I think for the viewers who are watching out there, this is also a possibility what can happen in the interview, and even I need to make sure of it, right? So I was thinking, so I'm conducting virtual interviews here, and you can't take into account what might happen in the middle, right? So yeah,
Right.
I'm sorry. We were talking about the impact of emails and always being
Emails.
open to opportunities, right? I'm sorry about
Yeah.
the outage. Something happened.
Oh, definitely. It's okay. And I think this is a really nice time to learn about improvisation as well, and then sort of get back into. I'll get back to my answer a little later. Just like give me my experience on one of the interviews where I had technical difficulties. Honestly, having technical issues and technical difficulties is the worst nightmare for any interviewing candidate because you have this one shot, and this is the most important day of your life, and to be able to have some unforeseen difficulties. I think this is a wonderful time for you to kind of showcase um, your abilities as a problem solver as well. So in one of my interviews, I had some issues with the sound and the mic, and this was a really different interface. It wasn't your regular Teams, WebEx, or Zoom. It was something else. And even they weren't not so much experienced, and neither were we. So in one of my interviews, the video was doing okay, the audio kind of went off. So what did the interview did was, since I was in US, that was something I was very lucky. I was in the US, so I had my phone, I had listed my contact, and whenever I had an issue, I promptly emailed the program coordinator, like, this is the difficulty I'm facing. How should I go about it? And they sort of helped me through. But during my interview, what happened was I was talking on phone while looking at the video with the interviewer. That happened. And I was actually very grateful. And later, I actually emailed the interviewer saying that, he was how helpful he had been throughout the whole situation. And I was being very nervous. And I was very bummed out that, this was my interview and I sort of ruined it with all the technical difficulties. And to be able to call me up directly and not waste a single time and help me sort of make it happen, make the interview happen. I was very grateful for him to work this out. So that was something I let them know. So now coming back to the power of emails, I'm someone who is very grateful and appreciative, and I never hesitate to go out and take an extra step to say thanks. And I'm someone who loves writing, and as an IMG, I would like to give a tip that how we are very much groomed into professional writing with a long email, 3 paragraph email. It doesn't have to be always like that, really. You can write short emails, short sentences, be to the point, but it's more about continuity, writing from your heart, not seeming so animated. So also while maintaining the professional boundary. So it's not just emails, honestly. It can be any form of communication, but it's about giving continuity and reaching out to people and letting them know. And as an IMG, you only have a lot of, handful of tools for you to be able to connect with people. I think Twitter is a really good platform as well for a lot of people. I see a lot of upcoming applicants who are out there trying to, say hi to the whole Met Twitter community. And I always find it very, very interesting and exciting. I don't see a lot of IMGs doing that, but I would definitely recommend IMGs joining up Twitter and, just waving a hi to people. So yeah, that's the power of email or any form of communication you opt for. And talking about being open to opportunities, like I said, I love trying out new things. And coming from my med school, I was very keen on trying out anything and everything, from procedures to multiple hobbies over time. And well, even after studying theory for 5 years, I was very keen on, sort of implementing that into my clinical internship. And I even tried my hand on teaching medical students, and that really helped me. Uh, and later, I was able to showcase that after learning to code a little bit for my website, and try to use a virtual platform to start teaching and e-learning development. And now lately, I'm enjoying mentoring young USMLE aspirants and future radiology aspirants, and that's something I'm trying to venture out. So being open to opportunities helped me explore my own limits and potentials. to be able to now say that, hey, I have tried this before and I know how it was. I'm someone who is always there to experience out new things, because sometimes I'm very divided whether I want to go with option A or option B. But I want to be in a point where I could say, hey, I tried both option A and B and I liked A better than the B, and to sort of filter it out. I wouldn't just like sit in a distance and say, well, I'm going to go with this one and just move ahead with that and end up with regrets. So I think that nature of mine kind of helped me being open to opportunities, but it had its disadvantage in the sense that I wasn't really perfect in everything I do. I would have to say that. I'm one of those jack of trades, master of none. I mean, I'm not a stellar researcher, of course, but I've tried my hand in research and I've enjoyed it. I enjoyed research in the sense that I would challenge the existing ideas in the clinical medicine and sort of bring new perspectives in and new ways to implicate new research advancements. So those were the things I was looking out for when I was doing research, and not just the publication numbers or citations. So these kind of perspectives will only come to you after you try a little bit hand-on research and then be able to say that, hey, well, I enjoyed this aspects of the research and this I did not. So yeah, I mean, being open to opportunities really helps you explore who you are. And I would definitely suggest everybody to take up smaller or bigger opportunities. For my research experience started with being master of ceremonies for little conferences. I was honestly there for good food, to be honest, and having to, skip my classes. But eventually I ended up falling in love with research. So yeah, that a little step would go a long way.
Okay, that that was nice. Okay, so let's get into this session of this. I've compiled a few questions for a rapid fire session of some sorts. So if you want to get into that, let's jump right into it.
Bring it on.
All right. So if not medicine, then what?
Ah, oh, okay. I'm gonna give two answers for that. I always give two answers. I don't know why. So if it was a 20-year-old Rajshree, she would have said she would be a musician. I guess now a 27-year-old me would say I would probably go into healthcare administration.
Okay. If
I
not
know.
radiology.
If not radiology, yeah, I applied to internal medicine. Both with radiology and medicine, I think I love the variety of cases and the diversity of the patients that I would get to see. That's something that's common in both of them, and I'll never be bored, I guess.
Okay. So a timely application with good, I mean, decent candidacy versus a bit late application, but a stellar candidate.
Uh, it's like a, tough choice. Uh, um, I would say because that's something that someone of my nature would do. Like I said, I'm a perfectionist and I want to do everything right. Um, I applied to a lot of DR programs and I did not get enough invite, in my opinion, sort of to able to reassure myself that I would match. So a little later into application, I applied to a lot of IM programs as well. But I did not get a lot of invites from those IM programs because I was a late applicant. So I would probably say that you do a complete timely application with a good candidacy versus a stellar one, because you would still get a chance to talk about your experience of what you're doing at the moment during your interview, and they're actually more interested to learn about things that you're doing at the moment during the interview rather than stuff you've already put out in the CV, because obviously everybody would like to talk about present than the past, right? So at the time when I was doing my interview, I was doing one of the best US clinical experiences I had. I was playing with packs and stuff like that. There was so much to talk about, and I was having a blast during that clinical rotation during my interview season. So a lot of times, some of my interviews ended up just talking about that experience. So yeah, I think this is my observation of this thing. I mean, because if you apply a little late, sometimes what happens is a program would finish up their quota of invites that they're planning to send because they've already received an overwhelming amount of application in the first deadline itself, right? So they might not have enough seats or invites left for someone who's applying late into the cycle and give it to them. because a lot of times this invite is served as a first come first basis. So yeah, that would be my 2 cents on this.
Right. So, ERA CV and personal statement review by at least someone, necessary or not.
Uh, Personal statement more so than CV, but both of them. Yes, I had 17 drafts for my personal statement, believe it or not. And it took me 3 months because, come to think of it, I'm trying to condense, you know, uh, more than 2 decades of my existence into one piece of paper. Definitely, there's so much to talk about and so much to filter out. To be able to find that fine balance comes from the fact that, whatever you'd write, you'd find like, hey, that's something that's very close to my heart, but it has to be someone else giving you the perspective. And you'll get a lot of criticisms. Honestly, some of them you think are like a bit of a stretch, and some of them are like, they're like too bored and they were like, oh, this is perfect, wonderful. I busted a lot of myths with my personal statement. It shouldn't be more than a page. It should like follow a certain guideline, like, why medicine, why MBBS, why, radiology, what do you want to do, stuff like that. I kind of deviated from that too as well, because I mean, if someone's skimming through your personal statement, you want to keep them hooked, right? And Yeah, I guess I was a wonderful storyteller. And I also busted a myth where people say that do not talk about your weaknesses. I owned my weaknesses like a boss, and that helped me. So that wouldn't have come if I hadn't sent out for reviews. And same with the application. My initial ERAS CV was, I think, 20 pages long, and sort of like cut it down to, I think, a 13 or 12 pages, something like that. So to be able to have someone who's going to like, scrutinize your application is a very handy thing. Definitely do it with professionals and non-professionals as well, especially people who have matched and your seniors.
Okay, so what about coping with this whole tiresome process of USMLE? I mean, you definitely enjoy it to some extent, and you do all of this, but to be honest, it's like there are a lot of steps involved, and it's a huge commitment that whenever you say, okay, so I'm going to do USMLE, and you start, what I did was I sat down to study, okay, and I started studying, and the studying part was okay. I kind of managed it, but when I used to talk to my seniors, and there used to come these, I mean, ideas about the visa process, this and that, 3 long steps, and 8-9 hours of exam, I was so overwhelmed. So the whole process, I mean, it's definitely enjoyable to some extent, but sometimes it gets to you, right? On the real side
It
of things,
does.
it
It
kind of
does.
gets to you.
It
So
does.
what would be your advice about how to cope with this whole process, and how to keep a cool head, and your eyes fixed at the target, and how would you go about managing if something happens, if you're stressed out, how would you cope regarding this whole USMLE process?
I still tell my friends and family and my junior that I'm still stuck in 2018. I'm still catching up with 2 years of my existence. I lost out when I was grounded. I shut off my social media because I used to see people like traveling everywhere and everywhere, anywhere, and I was someone who was studying 14 hours a day, and it was just a toxic positivity at some point, and I just wanted to shut it out from some time. So I deactivated my Facebooks and Instagram. Not that you have to do that, but it was me just trying to shut out the things that triggered me in some way. Um, so that was something I did. And There's a lot to talk about coping, and I think I can't stress enough about sharing your problems and share talking to people who are in the same journey as you are, because they'll be able to relate with it. And I had amazing support from my family. They were very helpful about it, and they were the pillars. Then comes my amazing study partners and my friends. So there was a people who I used to always fall back into, and they sort of helped me cope up with this, because obviously you give mock tests and you wouldn't score as much as expected, and you have an exam that's coming up in 3 weeks or 2 weeks, and you don't know what to do at this point. You're not sure, like, should I push my exam or not? So there's a lot of questions that come out. I remember some of the days when I used to score less during one of my UL blocks, and that was it. I was done for the day. I was so cranky and irritable, and I would like to really apologize if I displaced on anyone. I probably must have did that. So this it's a emotional roller coaster, but I think it helped me grow into someone more mature, more understanding, and which is one of the reasons why I want to take up mentoring for USMLE, because I've been there and I can empathize with the aspirants and what goes into their minds, the feeling of uncertainty, low self-esteem. I wasn't always like this, and it came with some experience. And I just want to tell them that, hey, I'm out there as well. So you just have to fall back into people for coping. Don't do this alone. You're not in this alone. There are others. Just go into forum if no one's around you who can understand you. There's a wonderful, welcoming forum community as well. And eventually, all of this would pass, and there's wonderful things that lie ahead. And you just have to be optimistic and look ahead. And one exam or one mock test doesn't define you ever. Just make sure that you remember that.
Yeah, that was really powerful what you said. I mean, one mock exam does not define you, and there's a lot of things that are going on in people's lives, and coming from all of that, not everyone is privileged enough to pursue these exams. I mean, as easy as some people would, right? So we need to take care of all of these things, and like you mentioned, it's very stressful. I remember, being like finishing, UWorld with I finished. First of all, I finished, I mean, UWorld with a good score, and then I thought, okay, let's go on with NBMEs. And I was pretty confident, and NBMEs were like, nope, not today, And I don't know, maybe it was because of the test taking strategy. Because I mean, in USMLE, one of my seniors, I mean, he used to tell me, and even you also tell me, that it's not only about scores, it's about being a good test taker. It's about having a strategy, and everything sort of culminates into what you are, and that is how you move forward. So yeah, I think that was some really, I mean, wonderful advice that you gave for future aspirants. So a last question, leap of faith versus calculated risk. Your thoughts?
Uh, I can I just like get a truce and say a healthy balance of both. But I think a realistic leap of faith. Sometimes you have to do that, but it should be backed up with sincere hard work and motivation and preparation.
I mean, you actually avoided that question so well by saying realistic leap of faith. I mean, I was not expecting that. I was expecting some kind of a discrete answer, but realistic leap of faith. All right, I will remember. I remember that
I just
always.
created that out of thin air. Even don't ask me what that means. No.
Okay, and yeah, so we're almost at the end of the session for today. So one thing that I really liked what you said was, you're like a jack of all and master of none, right? But what I believe is, in today's present world, you and, like, I mean, the people who thrive, I think they are jack of all but a master of few. I guess I think the whole proverb needs a little bit of changing from jack of all and master of none to jack of all but a master of few, right? So it could be that. Okay, so
Trying to be master of you, I guess.
yeah, exactly. In the process of becoming a master of few, because true mastery is not always achieved, right? You're always a
Yeah,
learner. So
absolutely. And I'm someone who is a very self-critical person about myself. I'm like constantly scrutinizing my own self. And I think I would never reach to a point where I would say I'm a master of something. And because I think that's where you would then stop learning about new things and experiencing things when you like put a hiatus in it and say, well, I've understood all of it. So I'm probably not going to be someone who's going to be satisfied with any amount of, experiences I culminate.
all right, that was amazing. So, thank you, Dr. Rajshree, for being here, okay, and blessing us with your presence, because you're someone I really look up to, and I believe that all the people who are watching this channel will be, I mean, you're delighted to see your interview just like this. And so, how can people reach you? I mean, obviously, I'll leave some few links here and there everywhere. That's going to be in the video, but I want this to come from you. So, where can we talk to you, or if they want some kind of advice, if we want some kind of advice? I mean, yeah, I have a direct line to you in my messenger in Facebook, but what about the other viewers
It's
who
a
would like to
hotline.
connect?
You can like buzz
Yeah,
me
exactly.
24 hours 7 and I'll still get back to you.
So
So
what
you
about
you
the
have a
viewers?
privilege.
I
It's not
mean,
a hotline.
all right, so what
Well,
do you think,
yes.
our viewers would want if they want to connect, how would they do that?
Right. First of all, thank you for having me into your channel. And this was immense fun. It was like one of our chai time golf, like I would say, but we have to do it virtually. It's quite sad. So, yes, I would want to reach out to my viewers and I would want them to drop the questions in this video below. And definitely, I'll try to get back to them. So, now finally after years of procrastination and 2 years of hiding away from social media, I finally kind of put myself out there. So I have my own YouTube channel called um, Dr. Rajshree. So I think here where are you gonna like place the
You can
icon,
just
like
point
okay
it down
here.
and I'll take care of the rest. Don't worry
Yeah.
about it.
Yes, I know. It's probably going to be here somewhere in the corner where Anurag would put up the icon, and you can go and subscribe to my channel. And I think Anurag and I, maybe we could probably, take all the questions that you get on your channel and sort of do a Q&A session in my channel, do a collab, and get our aspirants ready for the match 2022 and sort of clear out their queries if they have any. So that is one way you could reach out to me. Another, I also have my Twitter or IG with the same name, Dr. Radrashi, Dr. Radrashi. It's the same way. And just drop in your questions into my DMs as well. I'd be happy to be able to answer that. So I wish all the best for the future match applicants and especially the match 2022 applicants. My best wishes, just work on your ERAS application and your interviews as much as you did for your steps. And yeah, just subscribe to his channel. He's amazing. He has a really great content. I remember him posting a video, I think last season, with one of the I think match residents, and he has really great content. So just give him a nice subscribe. Show him some love, guys.
Thank you
So
so
thank you,
much.
Anurag. Thank you for having me at your channel.
Yes,
This was amazing.
it's actually a privilege to have you here, and I'm really, I understand that you must be busy with all the paperwork that's involved, your transition into the U.S. residencies, and everything is there. But still, you made some time. You came here and talked to me, and I was really scared with the, I mean, power outage that happened in the middle. But thank God you were there. I mean, to handle it. I was
Yeah, I think it's a really nice mock session for
exactly.
your future interview season. And I think now you're well prepared. You can handle anything that comes at you.
Yes,
So
hopefully. All
yeah,
right.
it's a,
All right, Dr. Rajshree. So thank you so much for being here. I will be talking to some other people who have, I mean, done as resident. I mean, gotten into residencies in the 2021 match season, and I hope everyone does their best. I wish you best of luck because I'm also applying this year. So, and I'm on the same boat as everyone else. So thank you so much, Dr. Rajshree, for being here, giving us your 2 cents about what this process is like and how you made it. Yeah, that's it. So with that said, this is Dr. Anurag, the Life Doc, and Dr. Rajshree Singh signing off with the promise to meet you yet again in another video, hopefully. And until then, everyone, please stay happy, stay positive, and as always, stay strong.